Hey Greg, thanks for sending us another version of tournament fishing. As you know, I'm Tyson,
I'm Colin.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Adam.
and we're the Gamesmiths, and we're here to play the newest version of tournament fishing to see where it's gotten. Ryan's going to go ahead and get us started with the rules.
Thanks. Okay, so the goal of tournament fishing is simple. Earn the most points at the end of 12 hours of fishing by catching the biggest and best fish in the lake. We've set up the lake here, and everybody is going to get 2 of these rod cards and flip them over, and you'll get to pick from one of your rods, and that rod will hang out with you for the rest of the game and kind of determine your base stats and everything like that. And choose whichever one you want to use and leave that one face up and flip the other one face down, and we have our little turn reference cards. So now everybody has their rod and reel and their little reference card for how the game goes. Basically, the game goes like this. You start off by scanning the lake, if you have any cards that allow you to do that. When you scan the lake, you simply pick up a card and secretly look at it and don't show anybody else at the table, and then play it back wherever you picked it up from. You might happen to see a fish, you might happen to see an event. Whatever it is, you don't do anything, you're just scanning the lake. And you just look and you put it back real quick. The next phase is the cast phase. So after you scan, you're allowed to cast. And when you cast, you do the same thing basically as scanning. You're going to flip up and you're going to look at a card, except you are going to actually resolve it. And there are 2 types of cards. There are fish, and there are events. I gotta see here. Here we go. There's an event. So if you see an event, you just do what it says on the event. You have a snag, you lose your lure, and immediately end the cast phase. And that'll basically just move you on to the next part of your turn. If it's a fish, then you see. So I apologize. Everybody's going to have a deck here, and you're going to draw 5 cards to start off with in your hand. Correct. 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. And in your hand are some actions, present actions like reel and drop, hook, cast, reel, all that kind of stuff. You're only allowed to play 1 cast action. You'll see each type of actions have a type, and 1 lure per turn. But you must play at least one. You must play at least 1 lure. Oops.
But you can play multiple.
And 1 lure and 1 cast. But then you can play multiple present actions. So the cast is, the cast throwing it out there, and then you have the present actions, which are like, are you reeling it in a little bit? Are you dropping it? Are you hooking it? How are you manipulating the bait so the fish wants to get it?
So if you don't have a cast action in your hand, you can't cast?
You can. The cast is a bonus, like a cast action is a bonus. You can play up to 1. You don't have to play a cast action if you don't.
So you can play a cast action and multiple
present actions. Correct.
Okay.
So the first time I cast, let's say I'm going to cast with my minnow, and then I've got the ramrod, and I'm also going to use, let's just say, that's it. I'm not going to use anything. I'm just going to use my ramrod and my minnow. And that's not good enough. I need at least 6, and I need at least, and I need to have a green lure. So then I would look at my hand, and I'm allowed to do a second cast phase. And I don't reveal this to anybody. I just look at it and I see, okay, I can't catch that. It's a 6 green, so that's too much because I'm at 2 yellow here. And so then I can either use my next action to cast somewhere else in the lake, or I can try and cast again here and get a 6 green. So after playing the cards I want, I can basically, like I said, cast again, and I can redo my cast and say, okay, this time I'm going to use a 2 cast and a drop and a reel and my salmon eggs. So now I've gotten all the way up to 6, and when I turn this over, then I'm going to flip it up for everybody to see. And then I am going to roll the dice that are indicated on this card. So I'm going to take the white one and the green one. And they all have different symbols on them. And depending on what comes up on the die, you have to meet the requirements of the die if you want to catch the fish. So now I'm going to roll. And on the white die, I've got nothing. So there's this little chart here, and the symbols resolve in this order. If you get a red pop, it means the fish got away, it took your lure, it took your bait, everything. So you lose your lure and the fish. So if that happens to me, I would lose the salmon eggs and I'd lose the fish. The fish would get away. If it comes up orange, blue, and yellow, then you have to discard a corresponding card from your hand to match that action to keep the fish. If you don't, you lose the fish, but you keep everything else.
So you got to make sure you keep enough cards in your hand to hopefully catch the fish.
Right.
So it's not good enough to just
dice rolls.
get everything out there to get up to that 6 green. You also have to keep some back to fulfill the requirements of your dice rolls.
Exactly. So if I roll like this, now I've got a yellow and a white up. I look at my hand, I do have a yellow card. I can just go ahead and play this card and say I've got the yellow, and then this one's fine, and I would score this. And I just keep it in what's called my live well, and I keep it, and I can keep up to 5 fish there, and whatever 5 fish are in there at the end of the game, whatever point value they have here, is how many points I score at the end of the game. Whoever has the most wins.
So if you exceed 5, you essentially throw one back, and how does that look when you throw?
Does it go back in the lake, or does it go out of the game?
It goes back into the lake. Yeah, if you get over 5, you can throw one back, including the one that you just caught, and it goes face up somewhere in the lake. So that was actually the rolling the dice. Is what I described was actually the real phase, and then we enter the buy phase. And one thing we forgot to do is lay out our enhancements here. So here we have our shop where we're allowed to buy new cards for our decks. So during the buy phase, any cards that you didn't play trying to hook the fish, you can discard and use as currency. So I've got these 2, and the number that you get for each is on the lower left-hand corner here. So my minnow and my grasshopper are each worth 1 point here. And so then I can buy it from the store at whatever the dollar value is down here. So all of those are too expensive for me to buy. All of these cost 3 or more. So I actually can't buy anything.
And that would go directly into your hand if you were able to purchase something.
Correct. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I didn't spend all my hand buying stuff and I couldn't catch a fish this turn. And so I have a pretty full hand. Now what I decide is any cards that I want to play are going to be shuffled away at the end of the turn. And any cards that I want to use to purchase are going to be shuffled away at the end of the turn. But any cards I don't use, I can keep in my hand for later turns. So what I want to do is I want to say play these 3 and purchase this pull, which is a better action card. Once I do that, once per turn, if I buy an action card, like this hook action for 3, I am allowed to lose an action card of the same type in play, in my hand, or in my discard pile. So if I buy this pull, which is a hook action, I can find my hook action here in my discard pile and lose it from the game, which means remove it from the game, and now I have the pull that's replaced it, so I'm slowly upgrading my deck.
Good.
You have a few different types of cards that you can purchase. There are the accessories here, which are persistent cards that kind of stick with you and give you abilities. So like the Fish Finder here will let you scan 2 cards in the lake. There are extra lures, and there are actions as well, like hook, pull, everything like that, and cast. So you have the accessories that all do different things. The bobber, the Fish Finder, you can kind of figure out as the game goes. A couple things to note. Number 1, if the card action here has 2 or more, or 1 or more symbols, you discard it to satisfy 1 die roll. So basically, if my die roll looks like this and it has a blue and an orange, I can't discard this to satisfy both conditions. I have to pick blue or orange.
Okay.
The only exception is the net. The net has all 3 symbols, and you're allowed to use 2 of those 3 symbols. So you're not allowed to use all 3.
Okay.
So the net would satisfy this dice roll because I can use the orange and the blue from it. But let's say I had this other die here, I would need to come up with another blue card if I wanted to also keep the fish. If you lose a live bait type lure, any cards that are lost are removed from the game, with the exception of live bait, such as the frog, the worm, anything like that. Whenever you lose those, they go in a side pile back up here next to the shop, and they can be purchased again for players on later turns. So you can actually purchase back those live baits. So that's the main stuff you need to know. Also note that we are playing the Great Lake variant here. So we have laid out the normal 4x5 grid and then laid a second layer of cards on top of it. If you try and catch a fish and fail, so you're reeling, let's say, we roll this and I roll a die roll that I can't satisfy with my cards, then this would go back into the lake, but underneath here. And you're going to have to get through this card if we want a chance at catching this one again. So that is about it. Those are the main important rules, and anything else we can discuss as it comes up. I forgot we also have a clock here. That's actually probably a big thing. The game lasts for 12 hours of fishing, and so we're going to start here at 6 o'clock in the morning, and each clock phase is going to have a different action. So this one will let everybody scan a lake card during the scan phase. This one will let everybody draw a card during the scan phase. This one gives everybody +2 cast during the scan phase. So as we move throughout the day, different bonuses will apply to everyone as they're going through the lake. So any questions from anyone?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, great. We'll shuffle these back up and play the game.